Hi, my name is Brett Ryan. I'm the CEO of Focus on the Family Australia, and welcome to the Talking About Mental Health and Wellbeing 4-part module series. Our 4 modules that we're going to be looking at is mental health and what it is, and we're going to briefly look at a theological perspective, and then what can you do practically if you know someone who is going through a crisis or going through a challenge. Our second module will be talking about suicide. We're going to be talking about some of the myths and also what to look out for and what to do. The third module is talking about grief, what it is and how we navigate through it. And the fourth and final module will be looking at resilience and self-care, because you're no good to anyone else if you don't look after yourself. We at Focus on the Family have a motto, or a bit of a theme, of being informed, being involved, being intentional. And we hope that by watching these 4 modules that you'll be better informed about mental health and well-being. Being involved is actually saying, I'm with you, I'm going to be there no matter what. And we have to be confident in knowing what to do and what to say and what not to say. So that means being intentional. So let's get started on module number 1, mental health. The World Health Organization refers to mental health as a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to her or his community. So in other words, we're on a spectrum because we all think, feel, and interact and behave differently when we're confronted with a different situation. And what happens to one person doesn't necessarily happen to another person. Mental health is complex and often is synonymous with someone with depression or anxiety, or another mental health disorder or an eating disorder. And it doesn't affect just the individual. When one individual has a mental health disorder or a mental health issue, the whole family and those around, the community around them, will be affected. And unfortunately, we have to own those who in the church have traditionally not dealt with this really well. And we're the first to put our hands up and saying we can do better. And hopefully you will be able to be the catalyst for change in your community no matter what. And I understand that maybe some people who don't go to church and don't have a faith, but you're listening and watching this and you're actually saying, hey, I don't understand where God fits into all of this, but hopefully at the end of it, you'll see how God is genuinely interested in you as a person and only wants what's best for you. But often the church has been superstitious or ignorant or arrogant when it comes to someone suffering from a mental health issue within their church community. And that person traditionally is suffering from a theology of not belonging. And we all want and desire a sense of belonging. And like the Pharisees, if you get your act together, you are welcome. But if you don't have your act together, you are not welcome. And we want to make sure that everyone is welcome in your community, in your family, and those you care for and love. Statistically, and I won't give you a lot of statistics because as soon as you say them, they're out of date. But in general here in Australia, about 1 in 5 adults will suffer from some form of mental health disorder. And if you're under the age of 18, about 1 in 4. And research is saying that about 50% of Australians at some stage or another will suffer from some form of mental health issue. So the law of probability would say that in your church community or those you care for will suffer at one stage or another. So that is the reason why we need to be better informed. The Bible has got plenty of examples of people who lament and share their heart and what is going on in their world. In fact, in Psalms, the psalmist who wrote this was talking about, from my youth I have suffered and been close to death. I have borne your terrors and I am in despair. Your wrath was swept over me. Your terrors have destroyed me. All day long they surround me like a flood. They have completely engulfed me. You have taken me, friend and neighbor. Darkness is my closest friend. That's someone that sounds very desperate. And those suffering from mental health, that seems to be their language. They are in despair. They feel overwhelmed. They feel like life is just being sucked out of them. They're being engulfed. And that may be the psalmist, but then there's many other people in the Bible, and particularly Jesus. It says in Isaiah 53 verse 3, he was a man of sorrows, familiar with suffering, which means that Jesus understands just as much as what you may be going through or someone that you know and care for is going through. He was familiar with loneliness. He was familiar with rejection. He was familiar when people didn't understand where he was coming from, and he felt abandoned and misunderstood. Sound familiar? We are made in the image of God, and Jesus himself can understand what we're going through. We are made of body, soul, and spirit, and we have to have a better understanding and be more holistic in the way that we approach someone with a mental health issue, which means we have to have a theology of mental health versus body health, because we seem to understand when someone has a problem with their heart, they might have high blood pressure, they can have a medication. Same with someone with a mental health issue. Their brain is not working as clearly and thinking as coherently as you would like, and therefore sometimes it needs treatment or intervention. Someone with a diabetes problem, their problem is their pancreas. We understand and can appreciate that they need medication. The same thing, they need intervention with someone with a mental health disorder. But unfortunately, there's still a stigma or a reluctance for people to seek help. And that could be for a variety of reasons. It could be because of cost, it could be because of embarrassment, it could be of ignorance, it could be because people have said that it's because you've got a lack of faith, you're not praying enough, you're not reading your Bible enough, you're not thinking happy thoughts. Or someone has said to them that you're not a real Christian if you've got depression or you need mental health help. These words can compound to an individual who is suffering from a mental health issue. And we, as the church, or the body of Christ, need to do a far better job when it comes to welcoming everyone. And that means everyone, including people who have got mental health issues. It says in the scriptures, from Romans 12 verse 15, it says, "Rejoice with those who rejoice and mourn with those who mourn." Which means that when someone is going through a difficult time, our job is to come alongside them and to help support them. It's easy to do life when someone's happy and joyous and everything's going well. It's a lot harder and a lot more difficult to help somebody when they are going through a difficult time. And that is the reason why we need to be better informed, more involved, and intentional. So what can you do when someone's going through a crisis or going through a challenge? And this is by no means exhaustive, but here are a few things to consider. And actually give them some language, or for yourself for that matter, a language to understand what is going on in their mind and in their body and in their soul. First of all, you need to know that we aren't in control of everything. And that is a loss. One of the greatest and most painful losses is the loss of certainty. And we have to accept that pain. It may be someone else's choice, or maybe your own choice, or circumstances that have arisen. But we have to accept that it is painful. We didn't choose it, we didn't like it, but it is one of those realities that has occurred. And once we've accepted that, and we actually understand that we can't control everything, and there's nothing is certain, we can actually move forward. And that's what we all want to do, help people move forward, not stay and dwell upon what is happening at this precise moment. It's really important to stick to routines. Getting up in the morning, doing what you can during the day, and going to sleep at night. Keeping to routines is vitally important. Sometimes you might need to see your general practitioner. They might be able to suggest counseling, and they may be able to refer you to appropriate counseling. Sometimes you might need to go into medications. All of these things, we have to have an understanding that, like we are holistically approaching mental health, is that we're made of body, soul, and spirit, and sometimes we may need to have medications for a time to get them over the hump. So therefore, we need to have a long-term view. This is what's happening now, but it doesn't mean it's going to be ongoing. We need to ground ourselves in the present. Accept what we're going through and ground ourselves, which means those routines and not trying to think about what's happening in the next 6 months' time or 12 months' time, but here and now. dealing with those things now, which means that even getting up in the morning could be a baby step, a little win. Making a meal is a little win. Those little things ground you and that you're actually being practical, and celebrate those wins when they happen. And going on to making meals, good diet, exercise, and sleep are vitally important for everyone's health and well-being. So if you're staying up late and not getting good sleep, that is going to compromise your health and well-being, and it may compromise those that you love. Limiting screen time, limiting the amount of news that you might receive, especially if you're not doing so well. We don't need to overwhelm ourselves listening to things too much on the news, because it actually can lower our coping mechanisms, because we can think catastrophizing everything. It's really important to socialize, connecting with others, and understanding that not everyone is going to understand where you're at, and need to accept that. People might say things that are contrary to what you want to hear or need to hear. Accept that. But knowing you should choose people that you trust, choose people that will actually give you life and speak life into your being, and not choose people that are going to suck life out of you. And that's important also. You socialize with others, but if you are married, your spouse is not everything for you, and you can't expect them to fill every want or desire. That's the reason why we need to do life in community and not expect one other person to fulfill everything that you need. And you need to give each other some space for their health and well-being and for your own. I think it's really important also to have an attitude of gratitude. And I encourage people, if they haven't, to journal things, to write things down, what they are thankful for. Because sometimes we can dwell upon all the things that are going wrong, and we have to spend a time of reflection and to slow down and to think, what can I be grateful for? Because not everything is going terribly. There are some good things, and to be grateful for those things. And although you feel like everything is out of control, we have to come back to the reality that God is in control. Even if it feels like everything is chaotic and everything is going terribly, God is in the control. And we need to know that He will be there in the midst of the storm. Despite the circumstances, it says in the scriptures that He will never leave you or forsake you. So staying close in communion with God, even though people maybe in the church have disappointed you, God does not disappoint. He doesn't actually always behave or act the way that we would like Him to do, but it doesn't mean that He doesn't love you or care for you. So it's important that everyone has different ways of connecting with God. It says in the book of John, "Abide in me and I will abide in you." So how do you do that? Everyone's different. Some people read the Bible, some people pray, some people listen to worship music, some people just like to get out in nature. You need to find the things that connect for you so you can connect to God. And no matter what is going on, God cares for you. No matter what the circumstances, what the situation, He will never leave you or forsake you. We at Focus on the Family have plenty of resources that hopefully you'll be able to turn to at a moment's notice. You can go to our website at families.org.au, and there's a lot of free downloads of podcasts and articles that may be able to help you or someone that you care for. We also highly recommend the Christian Counsellors Association of Australia. Their website is ccaa.net.au. And on the screen, there's a variety of other great organisations that are helping people navigate their own mental health and those that you care for and you love. Well, that concludes our first module on talking about mental health. Our second module is talking about suicide. And this is a heavy topic and one that people feel a little uncomfortable with. And hopefully they'll be able to get better informed on how you can help someone going through suicidal thoughts, or maybe for yourself or someone that you care for and love. We look forward to having you join us.